Some people may ask, why and how is race a social construct? In response to that, genetic studies and research indicate that there is no biological premise to categorize race. This is because race is fluid and so relative to a person's location, background, and lifestyle. Race proves extremely difficult to classify because one's personal identification may be completely different from what the person sitting next to them on the bus thinks, what their coworker thinks, and even what their own child may think. As demonstrated in the graph, the achievement gap has hardly improved over the last half of a century. In the 1960s, findings showed that students who were black placed in the 12th and 13th percentile of score distributions in math and reading assessments. This meant that 87% of their white high school senior peers scored ahead of those black students. When we look at the results from 2013, the number had only slightly increased to 19%. This change is not very notable, especially when we think that it happened over a 50-year period of trying to reform the educational system to vet out racism. While the achievement gap between students who are white and students of color is apparent, so is the classification of students who have disabilities. This begs the question, why? What does race have to do with any of this? Proving the pipeline. The single largest predictor of subsequent arrest among adolescent females is having been suspended, expelled, or held back during their middle school years. To go with this, 70% of women state prisoners have never completed high school. The achievement gap is language that places the responsibility on students. Children enter schools populated by teachers who are socialized to be combatively racially disconscious. These same adults then project their own internalized racism on children and blame these children, 4-year-olds or 18-year-olds, for the interpersonal and relational racial difficulties in these adult-to-child relationships. This projection and self-absorbed negligence on the part of adults constructs and places children on the path to prison instead of healthy life development. Self-centered adults create rejected and abandoned children. Quoted by Mr. Alexander.
In a recent study, researchers sent out 9,400 job application resumes to different cities. Half the people had typical black-sounding names and the other half had typical white-sounding names. Black applicants face major discrimination when applying for jobs with a customer focus. Researchers look for jobs with words like customer, sales, advisor, representative, agent, and loan officer in the description. For jobs such as these, the discrimination gap soared. Instead of facing a 2.8 percentage point gap between callback rates for whites and blacks, they faced a 4.4 point gap. For the jobs with descriptions that lacked those terms and were instead focused on interaction with coworkers, the level of discrimination collapsed. Descriptions with terms such as manager, administrator, coordinator, operations, and so forth, the difference in callback rates was 0.1 to 0.3 percentage points.
America's disparity between treatment of white people and treatment of people of color is made clear looking at incarceration rates. In 2012, black men were over 6 times as likely as white men to be incarcerated, and Hispanic men were nearly 3 times as likely as white men to be incarcerated. Additionally, African Americans and Hispanics make up 50% of all prisoners, but they only constitute for 1/4 of the U.S. population. This high percentage is grossly inconsistent with crime rates of people of color. This is due, in part, to racial profiling. In Chicago, for example, 72% of all police stop and frisks are black people, even though the city is only 32% black.
How we are going to end racism today. Neighborhood Watch. This initiative is going to work to end stigmas between community members of Oak Park and Austin. While many people stick with the narrative of Oak Park being extremely safe and welcoming, this is not a reality for many people. Many community members of Austin and other neighborhoods of the West Side express discomfort and fear in entering Oak Park. Similarly, many members of Oak Park fear entering Austin. This neighborhood watch will work to bridge these communities, and it is really happening. It will not be people standing on the corners with flashlights pestering passerbys. Rather, it will be a team of just and conscious individuals working to ensure the safety and peace of mind of everyone. This will help to destigmatize our communities, which is inherently tied back to race, and it will normalize interactions with members from other communities.
It will not be people standing on the corners with flashlights pestering passerbys. This neighborhood watch will work to bridge these communities, and it is really happening. It will normalize interactions with members from other communities. Similarly, many members of Oak Park fear entering Austin. This will help to destigmatize our communities, which is inherently tied back to race. Many community members of Austin and other neighborhoods of the West Side express discomfort and fear in entering Oak Park. And welcoming, this is not a reality for many people. Rather, it will be a team of just and conscious individuals working to ensure the safety and peace of mind of everyone. This initiative is going to work to end stigmas between community members of Oak Park and Austin. How we are going to end racism today and/or next week. A Neighborhood Watch.